Hey, thanks for joining me. My name is Aubrey, and I'm going to be reading you more Borgel by Daniel Pinkwater. We are starting with chapter 18. I'd be thunderstruck, Borgel said. I'd want to know where to find one, Fafner said. Not one. It, Freddie said. There is only one. It is not a type or kind of popsicle, but the ideal of all popsicles. I don't get it, I said. If this popsicle is so good, why is there only one? Why don't they make a lot of them? You don't get it, Freddie said. The popsicle of which I speak was not made by anyone, at least not in the sense you understand. This popsicle is probably ancient. It may have existed before humans, or any intelligent form of life as we know it. It isn't something you would just buy at the corner store and slurp on your way home. It is the essence of popsicle, the beginning of all popsicles. It is the great popsicle. Amazing, Fafner said. This great popsicle has powers of which we know nothing. It may have consciousness. I don't know. It may be alive. A living popsicle? It's possible. All anyone knows about it is gathered from old stories, forgotten by nearly everyone. I first heard of it long ago while traveling in a mountainous region on a distant world. The people there had no contact with anyone from outside for centuries before I came. They told stories of a great popsicle which contained the essence of all wisdom. I wondered if there might be any truth to the stories. Years later, I found references to a mighty popsicle in a collection of Paleo-Siberian folktales. The obscure Lechkot people, almost extinct, told of a popsicle similar to the one described by those remote mountain people. Then I really began to wonder if such a popsicle might exist. Wait, Borgel shouted. I know a story about a great popsicle. They used to tell it in the old country when somebody died. Can you remember it? Freddie asked, very excited. Well, let me see, Borgel said. It went something like this. In the long ago time, when everything was green, people were happy and overweight. There were plenty of skunks, and crops were abundant. In those days, people did not know how to build houses, and they had no need for them. They would lie down in the fields and go to sleep. And in the morning, they would get up and dance. At this time, there was a king, Napnik. He had a beautiful golden beard and was able to throw a rock farther than any of his subjects. The people loved Napnik because he never bothered them. He lived as simply as his people, except that he had a little cart drawn by 6 peasants in which he would ride around displaying his beard to everyone's delight. Once a year, Napnik would assemble the oldest and wisest men in the land, and they would discuss how to deal with any problems that existed. Since there were never any problems, they would just sit around for a couple days, sucking on potatoes and saying poetry. Then, the wise old men would return to their fields and forests for another year. It went on like this, as it had in Napnik's father's time, and his fathers before him, and his fathers before that, 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 and his fathers... Get on with it, Freddie shouted. Sorry, Borgel said. That's just the way they'd tell this story in the old country. They had plenty of time, Freddie said. Nothing but. Anyway, his fathers before him, etc., etc. It so happened that Napnik had a daughter, Glossolalia, a great beauty. She also had a golden beard, but not as thick as Napnik's. Glossolalia was not only beautiful, but clever. She tended her father's skunks and could throw a rock as far as the strongest man. One year, when the old wise men had gathered to suck on potatoes, Napnik announced, "It is time for Glossalia, my beautiful daughter, to marry. How shall we select a suitable husband for her?" The old wise men debated and deliberated. More potatoes were sent for. Napnik the king listened patiently as the old wise men discussed the qualities necessary in a husband for the daughter of the king. 2 weeks went by, and finally the council of the wise old men had decided. The husband of Glossolalia should be a nice fellow, have a few skunks of his own, be good at throwing rocks, and if possible, should have a golden beard and plenty of muscles. Napnik was well pleased by the decision of the old wise men, and was about to send them on their way, laden with gifts of skunks and extra potatoes, when something extraordinary occurred. Glossolalia herself strode into the circle of the wise men. This was something that never happened before. In those days, although women were feared, as they are today, they never appeared in the council of the wise. Even more unthinkable, Glossolalia actually spoke. "Phooey," she said. "A nice fellow with skunks? This is the sort of husband you choose for me? I reject your suggestion. I will choose my husband. Call together all the young men of the country, and I will speak to them myself." With that, Glossolalia kicked potato skins at the old wise men and departed. Napnik and the old wise men were astounded, but the king was moved to action. First, he took back the presents he had given to the old wise men and bade them go. To hurry them on their way, he threw rocks after them. Then he called all the young men of the country together. There were 11 of them. Glossolalia came before them and spoke to them. "It is time for me to choose a husband," she said. "Him that I marry will be king one day, for my father has no children other than me. You are all worthy young men, with skunks and everything, so how shall I choose? This is how. Are you listening? I will marry only a man of courage and wit. Those of you who hope to gain my hand will go far from this country, beyond the great forest, and learn the secrets of the world, do various brave things, and bring me a present. I get to keep the present, whether I marry you or not. The one of you who goes to the most interesting places and does the bravest things and brings the best present gets me. What do you say?" While Glossolalia spoke, 10 of the 11 men left. Only one remained, Grebitz, a handsome young skunk herd. Grebitz spoke. "Glossolalia, princess, beauteous, one. The other young men have left. I am the only suitor you've got. I am the only one willing to go far from this country and do the things you've said. So why not just get married and save a lot of trouble?" "Not so fast, handsome youth," Glossolalia said. "How do you know those other swains didn't leave early just to get started on their travels to win my hand?" "Because there they are, most of them, over in the next field tending the skunks," Grebitz said. Glossolalia picked up a rock. "Get started, my beloved, before I bean you," she said. Grebitz left on his great journey, the first person in history to leave the old country. While he was gone, Glossolalia got tired of waiting and married someone else. "Not only is that the most boring story I have ever heard," Freddie said, "but it has nothing to do with popsicles." "That was just to get you in the mood," Borgel said. "The popsicle part comes in the story that goes with it, the travels of young Grebitz." Fafnir was sleeping. I was looking out the window. "Well, get to it before I die of old age," Freddie said. Chapter 19. "Okay, the travels of young Grebitz. Here goes," Borgel said. Wait, stop," Freddie shouted. "You don't want to hear it?" Freddie was very excited. Stop the car, back up, I think I saw it." "What did you see?" Borgel asked. Back up slowly. It's right in here somewhere," Freddie said. He was leaning out the window. "What did he see?" Borgel asked me. "I don't know," I said. I wasn't paying attention. "Come on, back up more," Freddie said, motioning with his hand. "A little more. Stop! There it is." We looked where Freddie was pointing. All we saw was a narrow path, somewhat overgrown with weeds, leading back to a sort of hole in the bushes that lined the road. There was a faded sign painted on a piece of wood. "Great Popsicle Monument and Park." "Is that it?" I asked. "Well, read for yourself," Freddie said. "What are we waiting for? Let's go in," Fafnir said. Borgel headed the Dorbzelge onto the path, which was bumpy, and we drove into the bushes. "It looks as though no one has come this way for some time," Borgel said. The path took us into a dark forest. Branches brushed the side of the Dorbzelge. "Did you know this park existed?" Borgel asked Freddie. "Not exactly," Freddie said. I had a reason to believe that the Great Popsicle might be found somewhere around here, but I never dreamed it would be this easy. The sign said Great Popsicle Monument and Park, Borgel said. It doesn't necessarily mean the popsicle itself is here. Of course it's here, Freddie said. What else would be in a place called the Great Popsicle Monument and Park? Well, we'll see when we get there, if we ever get there, Borgel said. This path seems to go on forever. Of course, the path didn't go on forever, just for about an hour. After a while, we were all wondering if we hadn't somehow missed the Great Popsicle Monument and Park. How big is this Great Popsicle? Borgel asked. I'm not sure, Freddie said. It has to be pretty big. I mean, it's a great popsicle, not some dinky little thing. I don't know how we could miss it. I think I see something, Fafner said. There was something barely showing through the trees a long way ahead of us. As we got closer, we could see it was a large wooden building in a clearing. The building was a sort of round barn, like a fat tower or silo. It needed a coat of paint. There was nothing in that area around the building but an old car. It looked abandoned. The door of the building was open. Over the door was a sign. Great Popsicle. This is it! This is it! Freddie shouted. Come on, everybody, let's go in. Hold it, a voice called from somewhere. We looked around. Then we saw a skinny, dirty-looking man emerge from the old car. The way he was stretching suggests that he'd been sleeping in it. You folks gonna go in and see the popsicle? The skinny guy asked. Yes. It's all right, isn't it? Freddie asked. Costs you 50 zlotys a head, the skinny guy said. Fair enough, Freddie said, paying him. It's my treat. You're all my guests at this historic moment. We thanked Freddie and followed him into the building. He was hopping with excitement. Immediately inside the door was a set of dusty wooden steps. We went up through a hot, narrow corridor. It was just like going up to the loft of an old barn. The stairs wiggled and creaked under our feet. When we came out of the stairway, we were standing on a sort of balcony that went all around the inside of the round building. The whole interior was one open space, just like a barn. Light came from a few windows above our heads. We could look down from the balcony to the floor, which was dirt. In the middle of the floor, standing about 15 feet high, the top of it a little higher than our heads, the sides of it just beyond the reach of our hands, was a huge, vast, outsized popsicle. It was the old-fashioned double kind, 2 sticks, and it was orange. It was dusty on the top. That's it? I asked. The Great Popsicle, Freddie said rapturously. Fafter's nose was twitching a mile a minute. I don't think so, he said. What do you mean you don't think so? Freddie asked. I don't think it's the Great Popsicle, Fafner said. I thought I explained to you, Freddie said. I am the greatest expert in the universe on the subject of popsicles. While I am not yet 100% satisfied that this is indeed the Great Popsicle, I can't see any way it could be anything else. Now I ask you, what makes you think it's not? I'm a dog, bozo, Fafner said. I can sniff circles around a humanoid like you. If my olfactory membrane were spread out, it would take up more area than my whole skin. I could find out more by sniffing for a second than you could find out in a library in a year. And your sniffer tells you this isn't the Great Popsicle? That's what my sniffer tells me. You know what the Great Popsicle should smell like? I know it shouldn't smell like a paper mache and epoxy and wood and chicken wire. That's what this thing's made of? I asked. Plus, it isn't cold. If it were a popsicle, it should be frozen. That's basic, isn't it, Freddie? Yes. Well, do any of you feel any cold coming from that thing? It's hotter in here than outside. I rest my case. It's a fake. Well, I'm coming to that conclusion myself, Freddie said. Just the emotion of the moment, the illusion of seeing it, confused me. Fafner here, intuitive, simple beast that he is, may have gotten straight to the truth of the matter without doing any actual thinking. Fafner made a noise I'd have thought could only be made by an animal with lips. Still, Borgel said, what's the purpose of this big statue? What's it doing here, and what does it mean? We are certainly in Great Popsicle Country. Even if this isn't the genuine article, there's plenty to find out. Indeed, Freddie said. I suggest we question the yokel who took my money on the way in. We hurried down the stairs and found the yokel. You came out in a hurry, said the skinny guy. Didn't you like what it had to say? I'd like to ask you a few questions, if you please, my good man, Freddie said. I'm not a good man. I'm a bad man, and I don't get paid for answering questions. I get paid for selling tickets to the popsicle, the skinny guy said. Uncle Borgel put his hand on the skinny guy's shoulders. Of course, my colleague would compensate you for your time. My time is pretty expensive, the skinny guy said. How about 200 zlotys for as long as it takes to give us a little information? Okay, said the skinny guy. Let's have the money and then ask your questions. Freddie handed over the zlotys. First of all, can you tell us what that thing in there is supposed to be? That's the popsicle. That all you want to know? It isn't a real popsicle. That a question? Is it? Nope. It's what you call a replica. All right, now we're getting somewhere. However, slowly, Freddie said. What is it a replica of? Boy, this is fun, the skinny guy said. If I'd have known how easy answering questions was, I would have done it before this. It is a replica of a popsicle. Any particular popsicle? Maybe. I don't know the answer to that one. You'd have to ask the guy who made it. That was going to be my next question. Who made it? My daddy. Your daddy? Yep, Daddy built it. Is Daddy anywhere around? Yep, he's right over near the house. But he won't answer any of your questions if that's what you're thinking. Not even for 200 zlotys. Not for 2 million. Daddy's been dead for 20 years. He's buried near the house. Well, then who was your late father? Evil Toad. I beg your pardon? Evil Toad. It's a family name. I see. I am Hapless Toad. We Toads have lived here, forever. Look, why did your father, Evil Toad, build that popsicle? Why ask me? Why ask you? Who else is there to ask? Well, I don't mean to be rude, but why come all the way back here and pay 50 zlotys each for you 3 gentlemen and the dog and go in and see the popsicle and not ask any questions? But I am asking questions, you rural toad. Yes, but you're asking me. Freddie was hopping up and down. Who else is there to ask? Why, the popsicle. Didn't you know it answers questions? It answers questions? And you think I'm a yokel. Yes, it does. Why would anyone drive way back here in the woods and pay 50 zlotys just to look at some statue of a popsicle? My goodness, you're ignorant. The popsicle answers questions? I just told you. I was wondering why you all came out of there so fast. When Rolls Up, the Martian High Commissioner, was here the other month, he stayed in there most of the day. Rolls Up came here? Lots of people come here. Who's Rolls Up? I whispered to Borgel. A very important person. Some people say he's the only person in the universe who knows what's going on, Borgel whispered back. So what do? Just ask it questions? That's right. And it answers? Some. It answers some. Questions about anything? You can ask about anything, I guess. It answers what it likes. So there really isn't much point asking you. Not much. When we could just go back in and ask the popsicle. So it would seem. Well, Hapless Toad, thank you very much for explaining everything. You're welcome, I'm sure. We'll just go back inside now. Do what you like. Let's go back inside, Freddie said. We started towards the door. Hold it, Hapless Toad called. That will cost you 50 zlotys a head. We already paid. Then you came out. It costs 50 zlotys to go in. But we didn't ask any questions. That makes no difference. 50 zlotys to go in. That's robbery. Rules are rules. Pay up. Freddie counted out 200 zlotys. Every place I've ever been, dogs get in free, he said. Not here, Hapless Toad said. Enjoy yourselves. Stay as long as you like. We made our way up the stairs to the balcony inside the wooden building. There was a great replica of the great popsicle, just as boring as before. How do you propose we go about this? Borgel asked Freddie. Well, I suppose I'll just ask it a question. Great popsicle, can you hear me? From somewhere within the popsicle, a metallic voice spoke. Yep, I hear you. Got a question? This is hokey, Raffner growled. Try to be scientific, Freddie said. I'll ask it something simple. Great popsicle, how much is 4 times 4? Just a minute, the great popsicle replica said. We could hear it mumbling to itself. Let's see, 15? No, 16. 16 is the answer. The thing is stupid, Fafner said. Think it'll rain today? Freddie asked. Nope, not a cloud in the sky. Had some rain last week, though. Borgel motioned for us to gather around. He whispered, does that voice seem familiar to anybody? It sounds like Hapless Toad to me, I whispered back. Just what I was thinking, Freddie said. Obviously there's a microphone and a speaker inside the replica, and the scoundrel is working a trick on us. Fafner said, let me take care of this. Wait here. Without a sound, he disappeared down the stairs. Hey, you guys got any more questions? The great popsicle replica called. We're thinking, Borgel said. A minute later, we heard rapid footsteps on the stairs. Hapless Toad appeared, followed closely by Fafner. Hey, Hapless Toad said, this dog bit me. Nipped you, Fafner said. If I'd bitten you, you'd know the difference. I found him sitting in that old car, earphones on his head, talking to a microphone hidden in his hat. I was listening to my portable stereo, Hapless Toad complained, and I was singing along with the Ugly Bug Band, my favorite group. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that one is the Ugly Bug Band is probably the worst insect country and western group in the galaxy. 2, you were supposed to be fixing the plumbing, not goofing in your car. And 3, you have a horrible singing voice, someone said. Or something said. It wasn't any of us. It was the Great Popsicle. We looked at each other. Evidently, it was not Hapless Toad doing the talking for it, as we thought. Either that or he's a ventriloquist, Borgel said. What? Hapless Toad asked. A ventriloquist dummy, the popsicle said. Someone who can project his voice and make it seem to come from someplace else. Don't you know anything? Whose voice is that? Freddie asked. Hapless Toad. My daddy's. You said your daddy was dead. He is. When he built this thing, he programmed it to sound like him. Programmed it? Yes. It's a computer. What did you think it was? Magic? I'm going, Hapless Toad said. Tell your dog if he bites me again, I'm going to whack him with a shovel. Hapless Toad left. So you're a computer? Borgel asked the replica. Yes, you want me to explain what a computer is? I know what a computer is. Who built you? Evil Toad, a great genius and inventor. Why did he build you? Evil Toad built me because his son, Hapless Toad, who you've met, is a simple-minded goon. Since his only offspring has the mental power of coleslaw, Evil Toad created me to pass on the wisdom he accumulated in his life. Any wisdom in particular? Borgel asked. Yes, any wisdom in particular. Why did Evil Toad build you to resemble a great popsicle? Evil Toad built me to resemble a great popsicle out of respect. He respected the great popsicle. Why did Evil Toad respect the great popsicle? The great popsicle was Evil Toad's friend and teacher. It taught him all he knew. So the great popsicle exists, Freddie shouted. Is that a question? Doesn't it? Freddie added. Beyond question, the popsicle replica said. And you say it was Evil Toad's friend and teacher. Does that mean the popsicle is a living being? Well, I wouldn't say that, the popsicle replica computer answered. A popsicle is a popsicle, however great it may be. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a popsicle, would it? And all popsicles are friendly, otherwise they wouldn't be so beloved by all humankind and others. As to being Evil Toad's teacher, you can learn a lot from a popsicle. You, of all people, should know that, Freddie Nuffbum. You know who I am? I know most things. You had trouble with 4 times 4, Fafner said. I'm a little shaky in arithmetic. Great Popsicle computer replica, I desire to find the actual original Great Popsicle. Where is it? Freddie asked, very excited. Ask not, the popsicle replica said ominously. Why not? Ask not. Why, you won't tell? I'll tell you if you ask, but I ask you, ask not. Why do you ask me to ask not? Ask not that either, if you know what's good for you. But I want to know, Freddie said. The computer popsicle was silent. Don't I? Freddie added. This is the last time I will warn you, the replica said. Ask not. And now you'll tell us? Yes. So tell us, Freddie shouted. The popsicle replica said nothing. Then Freddie added, won't you? Don't blame me for what happens. Leave here, take a left at the road. Go 4 metaparsangs. Turn left again at the statue of a blue and orange striped cow's head. Then you're on a winding road. You go, about 11 metaparsangs. You cross an interdimensional bridge. When you cross the bridge, you will have left this plane of existence. You'll be in a monochromatic, 2-dimensional state. Follow the signs for Terra Haute. This will take you to the interstate. When you get on the interstate, turn off at the sign for hell. We're going to hell? You're going beyond it. Take a right at the end of the ramp. You'll be in a 3-dimensional state. Go about a metaparsang, past the gates of hell, and look for the Blue Moon Rest. It's a good place to have lunch. Ask Millie, the waitress, if her husband, Glugo, has a boat for rent. Then you have to find a wilderness guide. Maybe Glugo will take you himself. Then you're on your own. That's it? Except one more thing I have to tell you. What's that? Don't go. Will we be in danger? That is all I have to say on the subject. I say let's go, Freddie said. What do you say? Do you want to come with me to find the great popsicle? Well, never let it be said that I shrank from an adventure, Borgel said. Melvin, are you up to this expedition? Sure, I said. If you want to go, I do too. How about you, Fafner? Borgel asked. I say let's forget it. Ask the popsicle if there's an amusement park around here. So you vote against going, Borgel said. Emphatically, Fafner said. Well, it's too bad that vote wasn't unanimous, but of course, as a dog, you don't really have a vote. I just asked you out of politeness. We'll go. Maybe we'll find an amusement park another time. I hope sometime in another life, I get to be a humanoid, and you have to be a dog, Fafner said. Unlikely, Borgel said. Cheer up, I'll buy you a cheeseburger or something at dinner. Phooey on you, Fafner said. Now let me get this straight, Freddie said. We leave here, take a left at the road, go 4 metaparsangs, turn left again at the statue of a blue and orange striped cow's head. Then we're on a winding road. We go, about 11 metaparsangs. We cross an interdimensional bridge. When we cross the bridge, we will have left this plane of existence. We'll be in a monochromatic, 2-dimensional state. Follow the signs for Terra Haute. This will take us to the interstate. When we get on the interstate, turn off at the sign for hell. We take a right at the end of the ramp. We'll be in a 3-dimensional state. Go about a metaparsang, past the gates of hell, and look for a Blue Moon Rest. Ask Millie, the waitress, if her husband Glugo has a boat for rent. Then we have to find a wilderness guide. Maybe Glugo will take us himself. Then we're on our own. Right? Right, said the replica popsicle computer. But I wish you wouldn't. Chapter 20. It's a long way to the far side of hell, Borgel said. I suggest we camp somewhere around here and get a fresh start in the morning. Let's go now, Freddie said. We can drive all night and take a rest when we get there. I vote for starting in the morning, Fafner said, even though I'm only a dog and don't have a vote. We'll ask Hapless Toad if there's a good place to camp, Borgel said. We found Hapless Toad painting a new side. Dogs must be kept on a leash, it said. Mr. Toad, do you know of a place we can camp for the night? Borgel asked. Try Toad's campground just up the road, Hapless said. Any relation? My cousin Witless Toad runs it. Tell him I sent you. Thanks, Borgel said. We're so sorry about the dog attacking you. He thought he was doing right. He bit a hole right through my pants, Hapless said. I'm sure he's sorry, Borgel said. By the way, any place around here we could buy some groceries? Yep, Toad's store. It's near the campground. Another relative? Nope. The guy just happened to be named Toad. Nasty, ugly, horrible little Toad, not one of our Toads. We stopped at Toad's store. It was one of those country places that sells a little of everything. Only in this case, the proprietor, nasty, ugly, horrible little Toad, had nothing edible to sell except onions. Onions will be fine, Borgel said. I was just in the mood for a mess of onions, barbecued over a pit. A fire. How about the rest of you? Nobody touches the bag of kibble. Understood? Fafner said. Onions sound fine to me, Freddie said. We bought a whole bag. Witless Toad's campground was okay. It was not much different from Gypsy Bill's. We found a nice spot under some trees, and Borgel dug a bunch of blankets out of the trunk of the Dorbzelge. Let's see, a couple of us can bunk in the Dorbzelge, Borgel said, and we can make a couple of beds on the ground by gathering some soft branches and folding them under the blankets. I prefer to sleep in a tree, Freddie said. That's interesting, Borgel said. Do you always sleep in a tree? Whenever I can, Freddie said. Suit yourself, Borgel said. We spent the rest of the afternoon gathering wood for the fire and setting up Borgel's portable kitchen. Borgel and I peeled and cut up onions and skewered them on branches. Night come on suddenly, and it got cool. We gathered around the fire and cooked our onions on a stick. It was sort of neat. I even liked the onions. Borgel brewed some Norwegian Volmoss tea in his portable kettle, and we all sat around after supper, drinking tea and enjoying being outside. By this time tomorrow, we may have found the great popsicle, Freddie said. I wonder if it will be anything like the stories, Borgel said. That reminds me, Freddie said. You never told us the story about Grebbets. So I didn't, Borgel said. He got up and walked over to the trunk of the Dorbzelge. After rummaging around for a while, he came back with a banjo. Can you handle one of these? Asked Freddie. In an emergency, I suppose I can do pretty well with one, Freddie said. Borgel handed Freddie the banjo. Well, let's do it right. You get started and I'll chime in after a while. Freddie hefted the banjo. It's a nice one, he said. Be careful where you point it, Borgel said. Start me off with something repetitive in a minor key. Freddie clawed at the banjo, making a sort of sad squeaking sound in his nose at the same time. Borgel took a swig of the Norwegian Volmoss tea and leaned back, his eyes closed. Then he began to speak. The true story of the travels of young Grebbets, Borgel said. This is the story of Grebbets, a skunk herd of pure heart, who ventured far to win the hand of Glossolalia, the daughter of Napnik the king, and of what he saw, and where he went, and what he learned, and how he came back, and what he ate, and what he thought, and how much the skunks missed him when he was gone. Also, of the amazing thing he encountered, so strange he knew not what it was, and he knew not what to call it, and how he learned wisdom from the amazing thing and discovered its fearsome secret. What was the popsicle's... Was that the popsicle? Freddie asked. Keep playing, Borgel said, and don't interrupt. Young Grebbets walked on foot alone. He left the pleasant fields he had known all his life. He left the skunks he had cared for. He left his friends and the other skunk herds of the country. He carried with him a leathern bottle of hot and spicy oil, a potato, and his skunk herd's flute. Nothing else did he carry, for that was all he owned. Grebbets entered the great forest, a place of terror, for here skunks would sometimes stray and never be found again. For many days, Grebbets wandered in the forest, nibbling his potato, playing his flute, and listening to calls of the forest birds. When night came, he would sleep on the leafy forest floor, and each night a strange dream would come to him. This is the dream young Grebbets would dream each night while he wandered in the forest. Grebbets would be on the very peak of a high mountain. Below him, he would see fields and forests and rivers and all the things which existed. As Grebbets dreamed this dream, he would feel great excitement and happiness. Then, in his dream, the ghostly figure of a woman of great height, in billowing robes and wearing green basketball shoes, would appear. Beware, the woman would cry. Only the pure and simple may taste of the great wisdom. I am pure and simple, Grebbets would say. Then in his dream, the ghostly woman would bash Grebbets on the conch with the stick. He would feel a stinging chill and then awake. Grebbets was puzzled as to what this dream might mean. Night after night in the great forest, the dream would come to him, and day after day he wandered. At last, Grebbets emerged from the forest. No one in his country had ever come so far. At the edge of the forest, he met a giant. The giant was large and hairy and dirty, and smelled like 1,000 angry skunks. Prepare to die, the giant said to Grebbets. Why? What did I do? Grebbets asked the giant. You didn't do anything. Just prepare to die, that's all. Grebbets saw there was no way to defeat the giant. He tried to run away, but the giant overtook him. Now really prepare to die, the giant said. Spare my life, Grebbets said, and I will give you what's left of this potato. Ha, the giant said. I'll get that anyway, after you're dead. Ha, yourself, Grebbets said. You may kill me, but you will never learn the secret of this bottle. Grebbets held his leathern bottle of hot and spicy oil. Who cares, said the giant. And how come that bottle is made of leathern and not the usual stuff? Go ahead and kill me, Grebbit said. I will die with the satisfaction that you will never know the secret. Fine, said the giant. I'll kill you right now since you're so satisfied. Fine by me. Kill away, Grebbit said. Fine, said the giant. Fine, said Grebbit. Probably there isn't any secret to that bottle anyway, the giant said. You'll never know, will you? Said Grebbit. So what's in there anyway? Something magic? The giant asked. I thought you were going to kill me, Grebbit said. Get on with it. I haven't got all day. I'll kill you when I'm good and ready, the giant said. So what's in the bottle? I'm not telling, said Grebbit. You don't have to tell me the secret, the giant said. Just what's in it. It's a magic elixir, Grebbit said. You drink it and it gives you all sorts of powers. Boy, you are stupid, the giant said. You gave the whole thing away. No, I didn't. Yes, you did, said the giant. Now I can kill you and drink the elixir. What a dope. It won't do you any good, Grebbit said. I didn't tell you how much to drink, and if you don't drink enough, it won't do anything. I've had breakfasts that were brighter than you, the giant said. Now you've told me everything. No, I haven't, Grebbit said. Oh, yes? You told me that it's a magic elixir that will give me all sorts of powers. Then you told me that if I don't drink enough, it won't do anything. Now, given that I am a giant and am about 4 times your size, I don't suppose it would be too much if I drank the whole thing, would it? Well, here, give me that, the giant said. He snatched the leather bottle of hot and spicy oil from Grebbit and drank it dry in one gulp. Then, naturally, he felt dread on the spot. That's funny, Grebbit said. It never does that to me. Is there a popsicle in this story? Freddie interrupted. I'm getting to it, Borgel said. Well, my fingers are getting tired, that's all, Freddie said. Before Grebbit's amazed eyes, the dead giant changed into the woman in the flowing robes and green basketball shoes from his dream. You have shown courage in facing the giant, the woman said. I didn't know it would kill him, Grebbit said. I know, the mysterious woman said. If you had, you would not be a perfect idiot, and therefore would be unworthy to taste of the great wisdom. Then she hit Grebbit on the conch with some sort of stick, and he fell unconscious. When Grebbit awoke, he was in a meadow full of flowers. Birds sang, and the sun warmed him. He felt an inexpressible happiness. Everything was beautiful and serene. Then he saw something strange beyond belief. It was a thing like no other thing he had ever seen. Grebbit did not know if it was a creature, or a strange flower, or an apparition. Whatever this thing was, it filled him with wonder and happiness. It was frolicking and gamboling among the flowers. A shining thing, which seemed to be made of colored ice. It had 2 tiny legs which looked as though they were sticks of wood, and when it came near Grebbit, he felt a delightful coolness which seemed to come from the thing. He did not know why, but he experienced a great feeling of love for the wonderful object. What can this miracle be called? Grebbit asked aloud. The mysterious woman with the green basketball shoes appeared beside him. It has many names, the woman said. In the form you now witness, it is known as the Great Popsicle, and few humanoids have ever seen it. Then she vanished. Grebbit wondered at the Great Popsicle for a long time. Finally, it pranced away and returned no more. Grebbit rose and said, What an incredible experience. I think I'll continue my travels now. Wait, is that the end of the story? Freddie shouted. No, there's more, Borgel said, but that's all there is about the popsicle. I'm going to bed, Freddie said. Don't you want to hear the rest of it? Borgel asked. No. Freddie climbed a tree, wrapped his ankles around a branch, and went to sleep, upside down, like a bat. Chapter 21. Do you want to hear the rest of the story? Borgel asked. Maybe another time, I said. Interesting how Freddie's sleeping, hanging upside down in a tree. That's not all that's interesting about him, Borgel said. What do you mean? Freddie is not what he seems to be, Borgel said. You mean because he sleeps upside down in trees? That too, but I was thinking about the way he played the banjo. I thought he was pretty good, I said. There's something about the way he played it, Borgel said. I don't exactly know what it was. Something I must have forgotten. Well, no matter. I'm sure it will come back to me. Meanwhile, are you having a nice adventure, Melvin? Actually, I've never been on an adventure before, so I don't have anything to compare it to, but I guess it's okay. Well, we'll see some interesting things tomorrow. Borgel said, Look, Fafner is asleep already. We should turn in and get our rest. Uncle Borgel? I said. Yes? I was just wondering. Well, it's been a long time since we left home. There's no such thing as a long time. I thought I explained that to you. Time is neither long nor short. Remember the elliptical bagel with poppy seeds? The correct thing to say would be, It's been an elliptical time since we left home. What I meant was, won't they all be worried about us? Why should they be? We're okay, aren't we? Yes, but we've been gone an elliptical time. And, oh, homesick, is it? Actually, they might not even know we're gone. Not know? It's relative. While you have the impression that we've been traveling in time, space, and the other for quite a while, it may seem like a minute to the folks back home. Really? Oh, absolutely. Of course, it could work the other way. It might seem to them like we've been gone 90 or 100 years. It's tricky. Really? Look, if you want to go home, just say the word. I don't want you to have a bad time. We can go home anytime we like? I don't see why not, Uncle Borgel said. I felt a lot better knowing that. No, I want to go on and keep having an adventure, I said. On the other hand, I don't see why either, Borgel said. But let's get some sleep. Plenty to do in the morning. In the morning, after breakfast of leftover onions, we piled into the Dorbzelge and were on the road again. Where are we exactly? I asked Borgel. What do you mean, where? He asked. We're on a country road in the Dorbzelge looking for a statue of a blue and orange striped cow's head. Are we on Earth or some other planet? I never quite worked it out. You ever see anybody on Earth who looks like hapless Toad? Borgel asked. You mean the blue ears? Right. No, I can't say that I have. So we're on some other planet or some part of Earth we've never heard of, or a separate plane of existence. It's complicated. Explain it to me. Well, when you travel in time, space, and the other, it's hard to tell which one you're traveling in, or whether it's more than one. I don't get it, I said. Did you ever see a ghost? Borgel asked. No. How about someone who seems to appear for a second and then disappear? No. How about one of those soft ice cream stands, Dairy Chill and so forth? Sure, I've seen plenty of those, I said. All right. They're the best example anyway, Borgel said. All those places exist in another plane of existence. They just tend to appear in the one you usually live in. What do you mean, another plane of existence? I asked. I was really confused. A different world, which is as real as yours and which exists in the same space, but in a slightly different time. You know what it is, a tuning fork? Yes. Well, it makes a sound by vibrating, right? Vibrating is shaking to and fro. If you look at one closely while it's vibrating, you can see the tines of the fork appearing to exist on the to side and on the fro side. Now, what if you could see the to side of each vibration, but not the fro side? What would happen then? It would disappear and reappear really fast? Exactly. So what you might think is a ghost or someone who appears for a second and then disappears is just someone who vibrates to and fro, only slowly. And a soft ice cream stand, don't ask me why it's always them, vibrates to and from very, very slowly. I don't understand, I said. I do, Fafner said. Look, Freddie said, there's the blue and orange striped cow's head. We turned onto the winding road. Next, we have to look for an interdimensional bridge, Freddie said. This will be interesting, Borgel said. Now you'll see what it's like to go from one plane of existence to another. Interesting was hardly the word for it. Terrifying would be a better word. Also stunning. Also insane. After doodling along the road, which twisted and turned like a snake for a number of hours, we came to the bridge. It looked like an ordinary bridge. It didn't go over a river or anything, just a bridge. One of those metal highway bridges that you see all the time. Except when we were about halfway across, we all turned from color to black and white. So did everything else. Even stranger, everything became flat. Borgel was flat, Fafner was flat, Freddy was flat. What we and the Dorbzelge and everything outside the Dorbzelge looked like was cartoons. The daily black and white cartoons in the newspaper. "This is weird! What's happening?" I shouted. "We're in a two-dimensional state," Borgel said. "Don't try to think any deep thoughts." "You look like a cartoon," I said. "How can you drive in this flatness?" "Actually, it's easier," Borgel said. "One less dimension to worry about." "I hate this," I said. "You're just used to being round," Borgel said. "It makes a nice change, actually." "I feel like a placemat," Fafner said. "You want to see something really unusual?" Borgel asked. He pulled over to the side of the road. "Come on, Fafner, get out and chase me." Fafner and Borgel ran around the car. It was exactly like those old black and white cartoons they show on the local cable TV station. It was funny. Anyway, I thought it was funny. Freddy was impatient. "Get back in the car," he said. "We have a long way to go." By this time, Borgel and Fafner were out of breath from running and laughing. "Watch this," Borgel said. He turned sideways quickly and almost disappeared. "Hey, look at this one," Fafner shouted. He crawled under Borgel's feet. "I'm a rug." I jumped out of the car. "Look at me. I can fold myself." And I did it. I bent over double and folded like a piece of paper. Very good, Freddy said. "Now let's go." "You're certainly in a big hurry," Borgel said, getting back behind the wheel. "You should have more fun. You'll last longer." "Bear right for Terre Haute," Freddy shouted, pointing to a sign. I see it, Borgel said. "Now look for signs for the interstate." We passed black and white cartoon farms with what looked like drawings of houses and barns and animals. Fafner seemed to enjoy being two-dimensional. "Look out for paper clips, Borgel," he chortled. "You know, we could get there faster if we put ourselves in an envelope and mailed ourselves special delivery." "Not funny," I said. "Aw, go fold yourself," Fafner said. When we finally got on the interstate, we popped back into 3 dimensions and full color. I guess I had been starting to get used to being flat and monochrome because it suddenly seemed very crowded in the Dorbzelge. For a few minutes, I couldn't get used to taking up space, and I kept bumping into things. The interstate was the old familiar blackness and void. The road was the same glowing ribbon beneath us. In the distance, there were occasional areas which glowed dimly, and once in a while, a distant flash like lightning. "Ah, the old interstate," Borgel said. "So restful." "Uncle Borgel?" "Yas?" "Remember the big energy ball that chased us the other time?" "Sure." "I think I see another one," I said. "Nope, that's not another one of those energy monsters." "What a relief. It's the same one. I wonder if it's been following us all this while." This remark of Borgel's depressed me, especially as the big peach-colored thing was not behind us, but diagonally ahead of us and approaching fast. "It looks like it's going to get us," I shouted. "Oh no, I'm too beautiful to die," Fafner shouted. "Actually, it looks sort of bad," Uncle Borgel said. "About the only thing I can think of doing is running off the interstate, which is pretty much always certain death, from what I've been told." "Can't we turn around and run the other way?" I asked. "That would involve stopping," Borgel said. "By the time I did that and got us turned around, it would be a lot closer, and it would overtake us before we built up speed. No, the best thing would be to swing off the interstate, or hope we'd come around in an arc going the other way. Or I could try the same thing swinging around behind the crazy energy ball, but as I said, the chances of getting back on the road are almost non-existent. I think we're probably doomed." "I know what to do," Freddy said. He dug what looked like a potato out of his pocket and was holding it up for us to see. "Well, if you like," Borgel said, "but we'll barely have time to eat before it catches us." "We aren't going to eat it," Freddy said. He seemed to be whispering to the potato thing. Then he casually tossed it out the window. He hovered in the void outside the Dorbzelge for an instant, and then he made a beeline for the glowing energy monster. Suddenly, the energy ball extinguished like a light being switched off. "All gone," Freddy said. "How'd you do that?" I asked. "Just a handy trick," Freddy said. "Something I picked up on my travels." "I hope nobody but us saw you do that," Borgel said. We aren't supposed to destroy things along the interstate. We could get in serious trouble. We were already in serious trouble, Freddie said. True, Borgel said. Do you have any more of those potatoes on you? No, that was my only one, Freddie said. Good, Borgel said. Weapons scare me. What did you mean, too beautiful to die? I asked Fafner. Did I say that? Fafner asked. Amazing, the conceit of some animals, I said. Chapter 22. The signs for hell appeared along the interstate long before we got to the turnoff. They said things like, "Go to hell," and "See you in hell," and "Stay at the Prince of Darkness Motor Lodge, bar, BQs, nightly." Then there was a big sign, "Hell, next exit." Borgel turned the Dorbzelge off the interstate onto Good Intentions Boulevard. I have to say it was fantastic. Never in my life had I seen so many electric signs, so many fast food restaurants, motels, shopping malls, drive-in movies, used car lots, roadside stands, billboards, miniature golf courses, and discount hardware stores. The traffic was astounding. Vehicles of every imaginable description were progressing at a crawl, in 3 lanes, bumper to bumper. There were cars and buses, spacecraft wagons drawn by animals, boats, strange machines I couldn't figure out, beings on bicycles, and thousands of people on skateboards. I had seen a few strange aliens, mostly at Alfred's time-space root beer stand, but the sheer number and variety of weird-looking creatures along Good Intentions Boulevard was mind-blowing. There were seemingly intelligent life forms ranging from the size of a chipmunk to one we saw as big as a blue whale, and species resembling humanoids, reptiles, birds, hunks of rock, and animated pizzas. Scaly, slimy, hairy, smooth, lighter than air, glow in the dark, little green men. They were all there, every kind of freak in any number of universes. It looks just like places in New Jersey, Freddie said. Only more so, Borgel said. Hell is the most popular place there is. A really enormous sign came into view. It was incredible. There were lights of every color. Little red animated devils ran all around the edges of it, and real fireworks exploded in the air above it. It was the greatest sign I've ever saw. Letters 20 feet high flashed one message after the other. This is it. Hell. The original. The only. Hell. Get fried. Free as best as footwear. Hell. The gates of hell, when we got to them, were even more impressive than the sign. Really fantastic. Made of metal, with all sorts of fancy sculpture on them. Inside, past the gates, there was a fireworks display going on. Even better than the one above the sign. There was quite a smell of gunpowder. Outside the gates of hell was a guy with horns. He was capering around and waving the cars in. Is that the actual devil? I asked Borgel. Probably just a minor one, Borgel said. I hear they have quite a few. What happens inside? I asked. I'm not exactly sure, Borgel said, but I know one thing about it. What's that? If you didn't like it, you'd have a lot of trouble getting your money back. We were hung up for quite a while in front of the gates of hell, while traffic from the other direction made left turns in front of us. Most of the cars on Good Intentions Boulevard seemed to be going to hell. Let's go in for a while, Fafner said. I want to see what goes on. Nah, Borgel said. I always avoid a cheap tourist attraction. Besides, Freddie says, we have someplace important to go. It looks great, Fafner said. I wish I were going to hell. May your wish be granted, I said. Once we got past the gates of hell, traffic in our direction was much lighter, and we drove along at a reasonable speed. The roadside establishments were much the same, plenty of malls and drive-ins and places that sold little cement statues, mostly of devils, the kind people put on their lawns. After a while, we appeared to be getting into the outskirts of hell. The junk architecture thinned out quite a bit, and we could barely smell the brimstone. Maybe we missed the Blue Moon Rest, Freddie said. Nah, I was looking carefully, Borgel said. It ought to be coming up fairly soon now.
Hey, are you still awake? That's going to conclude chapters 18 through 22 for tonight's reading of Borgel. by Daniel Pinkwater. Hope to see you again soon to catch the rest of the story. Have a good night.